I would now request the President of the Rail Enthusiast Society, Mr. Vinoo Mathur, to kindly sum up with his closing remarks. Thank you, sir. Over to you.
I don't know how to go about it, but let me try and sort of summarize the speeches that we have, the presentations that were made since yesterday morning. I'll try and be as brief and quick as possible. We started yesterday morning with the first presentation on development of superpower American steam locomotives by Benjamin Kletzer. He highlighted progressive induction of new technology and design in the quest for horsepower and speed in order to achieve more ton miles. He mentioned the contribution of Will Woodward and later the Van Swingeren brothers in this regard, starting with the Mikado 282 US design. US superpower locos progressed to the 284 Erie design, to the 464 design that achieved a 100 miles per hour speed. These were succeeded by dual service 484s and heavy freight 210-4s, culminating in the big boy 4884, which had two sets of engine gear. Many of the superpower classes still survive, such as the Allegheny, Berkshire, Nickel Plate, and Big Boy class of steam locomotives. He also mentioned how American designs affected loco designs elsewhere in the world, including in India. Just as an aside, let me tell you, 2 years ago, one of my Japanese colleagues, who is a photographer, went all the way from India to the United States for a special run of the Big Boy and photographed it and came back to India. He is a true rail fan. We then had the second presentation by Craig McKay on the archives of Australia, in fact, of New South Wales. He described the archival material available with the Australian Railway History Society, a private collection relating to all infrastructure and operation, initially of the New South Wales Railway. Later, they have started including from other parts of Australia also. The very minimal employment of volunteers. The archives have been publishing 2 magazines each month since 1937, and they have 60,000 engineering drawings and 60,000 microfilms. A unique collection indeed. The challenge now for them was how to future protect these records. We then had a very fine presentation by Subhranshu on the Train 18, which was developed from an idea generated by the then general manager for the development of an entirely new type of train set for intercity travel, built to very high standards of comfort. The first challenge they faced was design, and they selected a special team for this purpose. Similarly, a team of 300 best-in-class artisans who brought together in various specializations such as electrics, brake systems, furnishing, etc. New skills and standards were developed, and the team worked overtime to meet the tight deadline. The train set had an arrangement of power distribution to different bogies with inherent advantages in terms of braking and acceleration. They also faced challenges in overcoming the objections raised by inspecting agencies whose clearance was required. Apart from this, ICF at the time had done a lot of other work which went unnoticed. For example, parcel trains, DMU for export to Sri Lanka, an AC EMU, and a new inspection car. The next presentation was by Charlotte Kingston, celebrating Britain's railway history, as well as the golden railway history in terms of Railway 200 and the 50th birthday of the National Rail Museum. She explained the railways were celebrating the, she described the renovation process of the NRM with a new larger roof being installed to create the Great Hall, the challenge of transporting building material and exhibits to the location. She also described the transformation of the Grand Goods Shed as a display area. An interesting addition was the interactive display where young minds could interact with rail-related devices and specially designed implements. She went on to explain the different events planned for this year, which included a Whistle Up program, Railway Firsts exhibition, young railway photographers, inspiration exhibition, and so on. We then had a very fine presentation by Paul Whittle on Britain's heritage railways. He gave us a comprehensive overview of the heritage railways in the UK. With the closure of 3,300 miles of railways between 1945 and 1962, and a further 4,065 miles between 1963 and 73, after the Beeching report, several picturesque sections were available for running heritage trains. Early heritage railway companies included the Tallinn Railway and the Bluebell Railway. Today, heritage railways operate 384 miles on standard gauge and 184 miles on narrow gauge in the UK. They operate 566 steam locos, 634 standard gauge diesels, 232 narrow gauge diesels, 1,424 carriages, and operate 450 stations. Their operating costs their operating revenue is generated from 50% from ticket sales, 25% from donations, and the balance from retail and catering. The Heritage Rail employs 4,100 people, and their business is worth over 600 million pounds. So it's really a remarkable feature in England. Then Mr. Jeet Sondhi gave us an excellent presentation on the Chinese railway and what progress they had made between 2014 and 2023. He spoke about three aspects of China Railway, with reforms, the high-speed railway, and future objectives. With respect to reforms, he stated that initially CR consisted of 44 sub-administrations like our divisions and 18 regional administrations like our zones. The tier of sub-administrations or the divisions was entirely removed and operations were directly managed and coordinated by the regional management. In addition, policy functions, regulation, and safety functions were transferred to the Ministry of Transport, and a China Railway Corporation was formed which worked under the Ministry of Finance. With respect to rail expansion, the network, which was 16,000 kilometers, 61,000, which was 1,800 kilometers, that is 111,800 kilometers in 2014, grew to 158,000 kilometers in 2023. Similarly, the HSR network, which was 16,000 kilometers in 2014, grew to 45,000 kilometers in 2014. In 2023. The success factors for this rapid growth included no modifications in the initial plans, assured business for contracts, and an insistence on transfer of technology from foreign entities. The HSR cost in China is 40% lower than other countries through standardization and localization of design, lower cost of labor, and a very short construction period. Future plans for the railway include trains at 450 kilometers per hour, maglev at 1,000 kilometers per hour in a vacuum tube, expansion of the system to 200,000 kilometers, and HSR to 70,000 kilometers. Really, the China experience and what China is doing is almost a miracle. Then we came to our final presentation of yesterday, which was about the Hyperloop technologies which will help India develop. Mr. Aditya Khakse highlighted the fact that India was adopting a step-by-step approach. A wide range of experts are now involved in planning from various sectors. A three-pronged development is envisaged with linear propulsion, magnetic levitation, and developing a vacuum tube. An experimental tube of 410 meters with 2-meter diameter has already been built. Propulsion shall be based on linear induction motors, and the initial planning and trials will be carried out by transporting cargo. Target sections under consideration include links to ports, airports, and catering to the mining industry. We wish them well, and I'm sure they'll succeed since they are going in this very systematic and organized manner. This morning, our first speaker was William Blaylock, who spoke about America's first transcontinental road. He started with a brief introduction to the Museum of the American Railroad at San Francisco. Then he talked about the Transcontinental Railway, which was constructed between 1863 and 1869 and inaugurated on May 10th, 1869. It was built by the Central Pacific and Union Pacific Railways with considerable support from the government in terms of loans. But what the presentation brought out, there was indeed a lot of corruption and on these two railway systems, and eventually, which led to the scandal and abuse, led to a lot of new laws coming in relating to taxation, to monopolies, and so on. The linkage also led to very rapid economic growth because it provided access to markets, and it spread the industrial revolution throughout the country. Another feature was the role that Abraham Lincoln played, because he was the railway lawyer, railway attorney. He realized the importance of the railways and promoted the construction of this particular railway. That was an interesting talk. We then had a presentation by Dr. Jaideep Gupta on 100 glorious years of railway electrification. The first train in India, electric train, came between Mumbai and Kurla in 1925. We then had, it was primarily for electrification of the suburban sections of Mumbai, as traffic had already started picking up by then. The next area to be electrified was Madras to Tambaram, and many years later, the 3000 DC traction was introduced between Howrah, Shirafuli, and in 1957 again, AC traction was introduced between Rajkharsavan and Dongaposi. He described various types of electric locomotives, old and at present, and talked about a number of other electrical equipment that is used. Then we had a very fine presentation by Vinay Kumar Singh on the development of regional rapid transit systems in India, in which the NCRTC is working on 3 corridors, and the first corridor from Meerut to Delhi will be complete by June this year. Most of it is already operational. I think NCRTC has done a number of novel things. First is the introduction of ETCS2 in India, a rolling stock capable of 80 kmph, which has been given on maintenance contract to an outside agency. The operations being managed by operations being outsourced to the Deutsche Bundesbahn company. They also built novel type methodology and land acquisition. They acquired the land in advance and then gave it to the contractor so that he had no excuses for not completing on time. Um, so I think it was a very interesting talk. There was also a lot of financial initiatives, the not taking money in dollars from the ADB, but taking it in Japanese yens. And he talked about multimodal integration. We then had a talk by Mr. Hemo Exfensberger, who talked about heritage railways in Japan. He stressed the importance of volunteers and the role that volunteers play in Germany, and not only in heritage railways, but elsewhere also. The first heritage railway in Germany came in 1966. And since then, he, of course, personally was involved in a number of leadership roles in various companies and organizations both at a railway level, at a national level, in museums and so on. But the laws in that company have been changing, and the railways have had to keep up with them because earlier only the until 1994, heritage railways could only operate on their private lines. But after 1994, EU announcements, they are entitled to work on any line. And in fact, all railways are now at par. So therefore, they have to maintain common standards everywhere. And he went on to describe in detail what these laws were, what changes had been made, and what kind of compliance had to be done. We then had an interesting talk by Mr. Rajesh Prasad on developing India, which was really, he was very optimistic about 2047 and what India can achieve. And he gave a very fine presentation on infrastructure creation on the railways, in which he talked about various bridges all over the world and other developments that have taken place, primarily constructions carried out by the Indian Railway and by RVNL in particular. So I hope this dream of 2047 will actually materialize. We then have a presentation by Mani on modern railroad signaling, exploring the 20th and 21st century systems in a global context. He had done a very detailed analysis of the evolution of signaling, particularly on the American railroads and in Germany. And I think the first thing he highlighted was safety and capacity. Signaling is basically relates to all advances in signaling, relates to these two aspects. He talked about the multiple aspect upper quadrant signaling in the United States and other types of signaling. He spoke of automatic signaling and of CTC and the German signaling system, both for on the normal system and as well as for high-speed trains. And I think I must mention Sanjay Chadda sort of made a very fine presentation on the sort of development of Indian Railways. He spoke about Stephenson, his very famous minute that he has recorded, about the company railways, about the creation of the railway board, the first railway board, and the railway board after the 1905 Act, of the reforms that took place in 1925, and eventually talking about a number of very interesting anecdotes which they came across. I think I'll stop here. And from my side, I think I consider this a very successful conference, because we have covered a very wide range of subjects, and many of these presentations were excellent. All of them were very good. I would like to thank our all our participants who are still with us. There are 36 participants still there. And I'd like to thank all our speakers for spending time on a weekend with us. And I would like to give a special thanks to our core team, who has worked really very hard to bring this about. Thank you very, very much.